This week's share is sponsored with Nishma Gala Rachel Bas Hechaber Shaul Chaim. So we'll discuss some Inyani Yom Kippur, as Yom Kippur is quickly approaching. So the Mishnah in the 8th Perek in Yuma deals with the Halach L'Maisa, at least now, since we don't have a Beis HaMikdash. So most of the Halach L'Maisa, the 5 Inuyim, are dealt with in the last Perek in Yuma. So we'll start off discussing the different Inuyim and some questions with them. So the Mishnah tells us, on Yom Kippur it's Asar Ba'achila and Shtiya, eating, drinking, Rechitza, washing, Sicha, anointing with oil, Ne'ilas HaSandal, leather shoes. Some people get confused, they think like a child is, can I wear a leather kippah? Can I wear a leather belt? Can I wear leather pants? No, I haven't got that one yet on Yom Kippur. But I said that's not a Yom Kippur issue, that's a separate discussion. But either way, the issue is the shoes, not the leather shoes. And Tashma Shamit, and having relations. So those are the 5 prohibitions. So, and I just named 6. So the Gemara tells us that Shtiya B'chal Achila, that eating and drinking are all under the same one. So they count as one, and they both go together. So they point out that Achila, the Gemara singles out Achila and Shtiya more than the other 4. In other words, as we'll see in a moment, there's going to be a major machlokas rishonim. What is the status of Shari Nuyim? Are they deraisa drabanan, washing, anointing? But whatever you're going to say, Achila and Shtiya are definitely deraisa, and they also have a chi of kares. So the Gemara learns out from the pasuk regarding Achila and Shtiya. Again, not that Achila and Shtiya are mistarfin. I'm not saying that together in that sense, but they're each independent. It's separate, but they all fall under the category of Achila and Shtiya. So Achila and Shtiya is singled out. Even if you assume Shari Niyam Adaraisa, Achila and Shtiya is more chamer because it comes with the chi of kares. So what is the status with Shari Niyam? So many Rishonim, the Tosas Rishonim, Tosfos, Rashi, many of the Rishonim say that Shari Nuyim are Durabanan, that washing oneself, anointing, wearing leather shoes, that only involves a rabbinical prohibition. Why, among other reasons, do they claim that Shari Nuyim are only Durabanan? Because if you look at the Mishnah and you look at the Gemara later on, there are many exceptions to the rule. The Mishnah lists Melech always has to appear clean and good, so he's allowed to wash himself. A Kala, Rashi says the first 30 days. And the Gemara later on has different examples. Someone gets dirty, you have sores on your head. So there are many exceptions to the rule. So that forced many of the Rishonim to say that the rule, because it's only D'Rabbanan, so therefore we could be Mekel. And that's where they conclude, many of the Rishonim, that all the other Inuyim besides eating and drinking are only rabbinic in nature. However, the Rambam and others, the Rambam clearly states all 5 Inuyim are deraisa. Rechitza, Sicha, Ne'ilas HaSandal, they're all deraisa. So if you're in the school of thought that Shari Inuyim are deraisa, then how do you explain all the kulas, all the exceptions? Bishcholma, if it's Drabanan, Heim Amru, they made up the prohibition to begin with, and that's what they told you it is. But if you tell me it's Minat Torah, then why the room for leniency? So the Tosas Yishanim suggests, he holds it's Drabanan, but to give a possible answer for the Shitas to hold it's Daraisa, he says perhaps, maybe when is, let's say Rechitza we'll use as an example. When is Rechitza Daraisa? That's only if it's Rechitza's Kol Gufo. That's only if you're washing all your body. But Rechitza's Mixas Gufo, that would only be Draban. And he claimed, and that's why, and also if you look at Ne'ilas HaSandal, the example is given with the sandal. But if it's a full shoe, so he wants to make that distinction between whether, let's stick to Rechitza for now, Rechitza's Kol Gufo, that's Daraisa, but mixas akluf is drabanan. So the kasha is, we know, is the famous Gemara in the same Gemara. If you continue on after that Mishnah, right on to the Gemara in the 8th parak in Yuma, so the Mishnah had a strange, not strange language, but it said Asr. So the Gemara says, Asr, Chiyav Kares Ikar. What do you mean Asr, to eat and drink? Like, okay, it's this Asr. Usually you say, Ochel, the Shir on Yom Kippur, Chayav Kares, right? What do you mean Asr? Asr can mean a minig, Asr can mean derabanan. So that's what the Gemara says. Why does the Mishnah use the language of Asr to teach me another halacha? There's a famous machlokas, and here is one of the Gemaras that discusses it, whether Chatzi Shir is Asr min HaTorah or Asr midrabanan. When you have less than the prescribed amount, it doesn't have to be 50%. In other words, if you have a Big Mac, you have a kazayas, you get makis. But if you take a bite, assuming we're dealing with treif daraisa, so therefore, even taking a bite out of it is an issa daraisa. The only difference is, the issa daraisa, you have the shear, you get makis. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's the same issa daraisa, except there's no onish. And Rish Lakish disagrees and says, Chatzi shear is mutter min Torah. It's only midrabanan that the rabbi said it was asur. And the Gemara gives different reasons. Rabbi Yochanan, Chazi, Litzterufe, that you can mix, and Rish Lakish says the Torah's definition was achila, and anything less than a kizayis isn't an achila. So that's the Gemara goes on over there. But we see from here, there's a famous machlokes in Kol HaTorah Kulo between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish on whether Chatzi Shir is asur min HaTorah or asur midrabanan. There's a whole separate shir, whole separate discussion, Chacham Tzvi on the 7th parak in Shabbos, about whether you say it by the malachas on Shabbos also, based on a Rashi over there. But it's a general rule, it's a machlokes Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish, where the Chatzi Shir is asur min HaTorah. So we paskin like Rav Yochanan. Chatzi Shir is asur min HaTorah. And in fact, that's why it's a big problem on Yom Kippur, if you're a chol she'ein bo sakana. Because in general, the other fast days, in terms of even Tisha B'Av, many are lenient on a chol she'ein bo sakana. When it comes to Yom Kippur is the only biblical fast day in the Torah, and in fact, that's why we have a mitzvah of eating Erev Yom Kippur. The fact that the Torah one time gives us a day to fast, so they want to make sure you have enough strength, and that's a further machlokes. If the mitzvah started tonight, that I was machmir after Plag HaMincha tonight, that to start at the chiyuv and especially have basar tonight. But that's a whole discussion. What the nafkaminas would be is whether you have the biggest slichus of the year tonight, i.e. tomorrow morning, depending when you say it, or do you have the shortest one? So the meaning among the yakis and broyers, it's longer than Erev Rosh Hashanah tonight. Right, you're a yaki, right? So you have a long slichus tonight. Erev Yom Kippur. And our minhag is it's a very short one. It's, 5 minutes. Because what's in the kuda? When does the mitzvah begin? Until, if you assume it's a din of a yantov, so if it begins at night, so then you can't, you don't have those slichas. If it begins, so they discuss that, assuming you say slichas at night. And in terms of, they point out, is that I think they bring that that's a machlokes, the Magen Avram versus the Gra, on whether the mitzvah of achilas erev Yom Kippur begins tonight, the night before. But either way, it's an isser that Yom Kippur is a fast min HaTorah. So the issue is, so the halacha is if you're a chol sheyesh bo sakana, so the halacha is you have to eat, and the question is, but how much, so then the Gemara tells us we have a klal in general, machina so kal tchil. We always try to minimize Yisur. That's a general rule in Shas. So the classical poskim right, it's talking about a chol sheyesh bo sakana. A chol sheyesh bo sakana, okay, you have to eat. Get the shot glass out, let's measure, let's go through all the measurements, and if you have to have 64 ounces of water or juice, so have a drink 64 separate times, spread it out, because that's what it applies to. When you're a chola sheyesh bo sakana, you have to eat pachas mikshir. And if you're chola she'ein bo sakana, there basically is no heter to eating. And that's the classical stock of many poskim. However, the Soloveitchiks and many of my Rebbeim from why you have a different approach. It's the famous approach of Rav Chaim. And he's based, the Rav Chaim said that he says, no, if you're a cholesh yesh bo sakana, throw out the shiurim. I'm not going to start trading around. That's it. You treat it like Tuesday today. That's it. You go ahead and you do whatever you need. You eat kedarko. But when the Gemara talks about eating pachas mikshir, that's a different shaila. If you're a cholesh she'ein bo sakana now, or maybe nothing now, but the point is, but if by not eating now or not doing whatever you have to, let's say eating now, 10 minutes from now, 2 hours from now, you're going to become a cholesh yesh bo sakana. So then you should eat now, but then you have to eat pachas mikshir, because right now I'm at a cholesh yesh bo sakana. So if you're a cholesh yesh bo sakana, and let's say diabetes, we go through the different sicknesses and illnesses, but if you're a cholesh she'ein bo sakana now, by not eating, it's going to cause you to be at least even a suffix cholesh she'esh bo sakana later on. So don't wait till it happens, but eat right away. Pachas mikshir. If you're just a cholesh she'ein bo sakana, and there is there's never no chance, but it doesn't look like it's any danger. You're just uncomfortable. It's a discomfort. So pashtus, there really isn't a heter. I see some try to, depends how much you want to push the envelope and say a cholesh she'ein bo sakana khalid. If it's like some to bring down tear of hadas, that from all the anxiety you're worried you'll become a cholesh she'ein bo sakana, or if you're afraid you're going to faint. So again, that's more difficult. But pashtus, a cholesh she'ein bo sakana, and there's no concern that you're going to be a sakana. If you can, really, then you put.
There's a difference between Isha She'erecha and Isha Chsabumus, right? Because one is Yesh V'Sakana, one is She'ein V'Sakana. So, but are we treating them the same or not? How is that going to work? On a non-brisk approach.
Right, I guess.
Is Machila no Kalakal?
Yeah,
for both? Or for which one? Isha She'erecha or the boom?
Right, I guess. In a non-brisk approach, you're always feeding Machila no Kalakal Tkila. Right. If you're a cholesh, even if. So certainly a cholesh she'ein bo sakana, but even a cholesh sheyesh bo sakana, you feed kal tzchila. So therefore it should be. So according to the normative approach, that probably you feed them both with shiurim. But so they asked Rav Chaim, where did you get this from? Where did you get this tremendous chiddush? So he quotes the Magid Mishnah in Hilchos Shabbos. He quotes, of course, that's assuming we pass like the Magid Mishnah, but he quotes the Magid Mishnah that talks about a chol on Shabbos. He has a language about you can do called sarcho. You can take care of the needs of the chol, all the needs. What does it mean, all the needs? So obviously, things that you need for life and death, of course, you can take care of. But even things that aren't, let's say, for instance, you're in the hospital bed, there's no one else around except you, and let's say it's an electric thing, and the chol is very uncomfortable, and you need someone to move the bed up. So then that would be considered called circle. Again, it's like Tuesday. Of course, how far you take that, if the chola has to watch the Jet game or the football game, that might be going a little too far. But in terms of, but the Magid Mishnah called circle. So we see even things that aren't right now pikuach nefesh, but once you have the heter pikuach nefesh, so therefore you could do all the things that aren't. So the Rav Chaim claims same thing here. You don't have to wait. But a person's a cholesh sheyesh bo sakana, it's kachol, it's kachol. And therefore you treat it like a regular, and you could eat kedarko. A cholesh she'ein bo sakana, which is going to lead by not eating, so then machina so kal tzchila.
Why do you eat the Magid? Doesn't the Shulchan Aruch say the same thing? Called circle?
Yeah, but I guess how there is a lesson, but it depends what also, the Magid Mishnah spells it out more, but it depends what the Shulchan Aruch means.
It's not clear?
Yeah, I'm saying, I guess that's why, or maybe he got more, maybe they're quoting from the Magid Mishnah. I know he quotes the Magid Mishnah, so.
I'm just saying, you don't have to say it's an obscure source.
No, right, no, I'm saying, no, but I know, because some poskim, not everyone agrees with the Magid Mishnah. Some will be, I guess the argument will be in the details, what's considered the needs of a chola. Some will say you only can do the things that you need, the things that, to make it a little less comfortable, though some might argue that you can't do. I'm saying, but but Rav Chaim and others, even those, once it's pikuach nefesh, because then it's kind of like a chol, and therefore you could basically, in other words, do everything you would do if it wasn't a Shabbos, if it wasn't a Yom Tov, and therefore.
This distinction, chol shein b'sakana, that becomes the chol sheish b'sakana. Every time I come across it, I remember going through a Tshuva Ramosha, and I find it very, very difficult to understand that, because how can you define a person as a chol shein b'sakana if you tell me that really there is a potential for sakana? I mean, I would say the person, if he doesn't eat, is going to get sick and it's going to be chol sheish b'sakana. Chol sheish b'sakana is defined by looking over time. I mean, the point is he's not dying right now, but he looks like he's in a path that's dangerous.
No, but the more discusses the undernote. We look at him now and for the near future.
Let's say, I'm saying let's assume the next 24 hours.
However, whatever the time frame.
I think that the time frame over here is 24 hours. I mean, I don't think you're not going to say if he doesn't do it now, he's going to get sick in a month from now. I'm not talking about that. But the finding practice is that I think that terminology is like, I mean, and if you say that if he eats pachas at this point in time, he will not develop a sakana. That's really what has to be said in every case of chol sheish b'sakana, because the fact is, if you only use pachas shear, it will not affect the sakana whatsoever. If there's any question of it affecting the sakana, you don't do it.
But even according to poskim who say machil, obviously in a case where the person needs it right away, they agree.
Right.
Achil kedarko. Do you want to say it's just a matter? The Rav Chaim, it's just a matter of how you define a chol she'ein bo sakana. In order,
or how you define.
No, right. Rav Chaim, his distinction is, right now, whatever the next hour, whatever, whether it's the minute, hour, however he's defining it. Right now, you look at this person. So we're taking the definition from Shabbos of a chol she'ein, that someone who's not full of mishka, someone who can't basically function. You have to lie on the couch, lie on the bed. So that's a chol she'ein bo sakana. So you look at them right now. There is no danger in terms of right. Then the question is, how is it 2 hours from now, 3 hours, 24 hours?
He's trying to think, but the fact is, if he doesn't, you can take in terms of diabetes. I mean, the fact is, the person is diabetic right now. Be totally fine. It's just that we know that he doesn't take his insulin or
right. You could just say or you could just say that if you want to change the language, there's two types of chol she'ein bo sakana. Instead of calling it a chol she'ein bo sakana, you're a chol she'ein bo sakana. But when the Gemara talks about achil kalkal tchila, that's about the chol she'ein sakana who's going to be in the next short time period. So then you machil and kalkal. So I'm saying, but just a matter.
That language is significant.
Yeah, no, that's
what I'm seeing here. But the fact is that even those people who say you do pachas shear, that's only if it doesn't affect the sakana whatsoever. If it affects the sakana whatsoever, then you treat them like any other day. So it's an interesting question of the definition. I think that definition.
Right, but could it be according to Rav Chaim, even if the person doesn't need the whole thing right away? Maybe he'd say it's kachol. In other words, even a chol she'ein bo sakana, maybe the Norah post would say, but that depends on if the person. If part of his refuah is eating the more than the prescribed amount, maybe and Rav Chaim would say, no, you don't have to start clearing your chol she'ein sakana. Eat so even if you're going to assume that both chol she'ein bo sakanas, so then within so you have to split the categories, right? So either way, I've seen it.
I think it needs a further definition.
No, right. In terms of whether you want to say it's a different, there are different levels of chol she'ein bo sakana, or even within chol she'ein bo sakana.
When you say in terms of kol shorfa, the fact of the matter is, it's a matter of everything he needs for the refuah, even if it doesn't directly have an effect on
right, that's the question. That's what people say, everything needed, but the things aren't directly, whether you fix his bed or not going to make a difference.
And you say it does.
And right, and that's what right. Rav Chaim, he'd say, that's the famous Ma'aseh independently. He'd say, I think the Rav says it over, that we once saw his father, Rav Bosha, once, it was Shabbos, I guess, and someone was sick, in the house. So I think so Rav Moshe was there, and the Rav, and someone was sick, maybe it was Rav Chaim, I don't remember who, and the doctor came in, and it was Shabbos, so I think the Rav Moshe asked the doctor, do you need the light on? Would the light be helpful? Something like that. And the doctor said it can't hurt. So Rav Moshe said to the Rav, turn on the light. So the Rav hesitated for a minute. He said, you apikaris, you heretic, and he got it. So you know, that's he says that in terms of when the briskets are known to be, as they call it, to be machmer and pikuach nefesh, not meikol and hilchot Shabbos, but that's the ma'aser Rav Shechto he says over with
that was cholish yesh b'sakana or
yeah, so
b'sakana?
Oh, it has to be yesh.
Yeah, to turn on a light. I mean,
right, so the halacha in the Maggid Mishnah is for a cholish yesh b'sakana or ein b'sakana?
no, so that's a cholish yesh b'sakana. In terms of, like the Kiddush of the Maggid Mishnah, even things that aren't critical to the need. In other words, a cholish yesh b'sakana, everyone agrees that the refuah, whatever it means eating or taking, everyone agrees you need that. But the Kiddush of the Maggid Mishnah is even things that, even if you didn't do, everyone agrees there's no...
Comfort that might be unrelated
exactly.
to the sickness. Would
Can
that be right?
Yeah.
I give an example of Misa? There's an individual who is going to be in the hospital beginning of Sukkot, and it's a possibility he's going to he'll get out on Friday, like on Shinyanta. So the question arises: as we get to the hospital, where should he go? There's a hotel right nearby.
Walking distance.
Well, I don't think better walk, but he'll be able to be pushed by a wheelchair. And the other way is for him to get home, whatever. And the point is that at home he'll be better off at home. You know what I mean? Like
everyone's more comfortable at home than being in.
But he could get by.
It's also a 3-day yontif also.
Right. But it's also his wife will have to take care of him, and the point is that it's easier for her at home and so forth and so forth. So it was my feeling. I told him he should ask the person he usually asks the shadows for, because I felt that for sure he should take a cab home. And when he asked the shadow, the person also answered the same way.
So he spoke to his person. He thought he agreed with that.
Yeah. So
I remember a case that happened to me. I think it was Pesach in New York. I was in Long Island. So it must have been Erev Yontif or Erev, I guess it was a Yontif. It was like the second is Pesach maybe, and it was like that day, and my brother was Hatzalah, so whatever they thought I was having a kidney stone, which I've had once before. Then so they took me to the hospital, and obviously I got there 4 or 5 o'clock. Yontif, like it's an hour or two. So I asked them, and I said, so what are they? What's the minhag here in terms of? I don't think I'm planning on staying in the hospital with nothing, all that for the next 2 days, wherever it was. So what today already have it worked out is they give you a card, a little card. It's already worked out. You go to the non-Jewish nurse, whatever they throw you out, and
obviously they're very progressive in New York, because I had the problem about a year ago. I had to make my own card, and I arranged with the hospital nurses. Here's $10 or $20 for the cab. And I had to open the door and everything.
Here it's worked out, from Hatzalah, you give them the card, you tell the nurse to call, and then he opened, and then went home. So I'm saying,
It seems to be that the still is.
I was a cholish ein bo sakana. Then you get it. Any of them makam d'Rabbanan lo god. I mean, there's so many reasons. Bittul simchas. Yeah, I mean, because
right. But the fact is that it's still.
I know. I agree. Pushing a wheelchair might be left. That's also he's having a guy pushing him a wheelchair without an Erev,
Well, it's yontif.
Oh, right. Okay. So it's yontif, right? Okay. So it's.
But the thing is, in your case, once you go, you don't know it's a kidney stone.
No.
You're in tremendous pain or whatever it is. The fact is, you're in the definition of a stomach.
I am talking about afterwards.
And afterwards, that's where Moshe's argument.
Yeah.
The continuous concept. But the fact is the way you define it in terms of the claim seems to be that there's two different, rather than going to Polish but it seems to be two different types of Polish Yesh Sakana, and it seems to be...
Because the Polish Yesh Sakana, because then then where do you draw the line? Obviously, we're saying a Chol Hashem Sakana, by definition, no matter what, he's not going to be, within whatever that reasonable time is, whatever halacha defines that time as, he's defined as a Chol. Because you're saying if you say it the other way, then every Chol Hashem Sakana could become, or you could just say within the Chol Hashem, some Chol Hashem Sakanas do we, you could do it either way by
you have to definition, and the question goes back to what extent you have to be worried about the secondary aspects.
Well, any doctor will tell you that a Chol Hashem Sakana could develop into a Chol Hashem Sakana. And who knows, right? Who knows what could cause that change?
Is that what it was saying?
I don't know. I'm looking at the medical department.
Looking at the doctor.
He doesn't seem to be agreeing so quickly.
Yeah, I might be surprised to hear.
So I'm not talking about you have a stitch in your foot. I'm talking about
you got a kidney
physiological kidney stones, breathing
problems. The example I was given
problems.
before is that a diabetic is a chol sheyesh bo sakana at all times. That's where I would maybe not agree 100%. If he's you're treated. A person who has high blood pressure, right, is a chol sheyesh bo sakana. At that moment, of course, he's not in sakana because he's taking his medication.
Exactly.
So when that person is told, don't take medication on the thing, you don't say, oh, well, now you're perfectly fine.
That's exactly that. You'll have a heart attack.
So the mitzias is that you are a chol sheyesh bo sakana, but you're treated. That's not. That's how I understand it. Otherwise, what do you mean? Then of course,
It's an interesting thing. When you say based on this argument, you say you're chol sheyesh bo sakana. Let's take in terms of the medication, high blood pressure medication. If you skip a day, it doesn't really matter that much, right? So
I'm not so sure about that. You'd have to evaluate
that's the question mark. That depends on how high your blood pressure is.
The point is that that's what makes it. In other words, missing a few dosages makes you, by definition, a chol. If you have it that you're just taking it, you're relatively young and it's just a mild, thing, just as a precaution. You'd have to evaluate each case. I don't think you can. But these things that a person is on a regular basis for an ongoing condition. Of course, the person's not a chol sheyesh, he's not dying in front of you right now. That's not the definition of chol sheyesh bo sakana. But you take anything away from them.
Let's take in terms of the pills for high blood pressure. So I've heard another doctor say that for sure, if you take pills, you should always take water, because the pill can get lodged in your esophagus and can cause real problems if it gets lodged. So you take water. So what you're saying, a person's on blood pressure medication. You're saying he should take it with the water in Yom Kippur, and not skip it.
I didn't say all that.
No,
I just said he's a chol sheyesh bo sakana.
Assuming that premise is true, that you should never take your pills alone without water. Right. Some might be cholik, and then say it's not a real chashash.
Yeah.
But no, I'm saying right. But if you
wherever you got that idea, then that's fine too. But the mitzias is that that person is I would see a person who's a insulin dependent diabetic, right? He is a chol sheyesh bo sakana. What more sakana do you need? He happens to be treated. Untreated, he'll end up if you don't give him what he needs, right? So you could there are modern ways of doing it. If a person has a pump, for example, right? You could circumvent the whole need for eating, right? So there are more technologically savvy ways of doing it. A person who has congestive heart failure is on a certain water pill. Of course, he's going to be, chol sheyesh bo sakana. In 24 hours, he'll be in the emergency department.
It's interesting the thing with the pump is based on Moshe. It'd be interesting if once you're given the heter to eat. There's a question of there's someone asking a shot about Yom Kippur whether you should take intravenous or not, right?
Yeah.
Moshe said, well, he says, so the doctors say it's good today, but who knows what they'll say 50 years from now.
Well, we discussed here at the table. We said whether on the Yom Kippur there's a whole Indian of whether it's achila or svia.
But that's right, because
the truth is
the size,
there may be
versus
because the machok, I think it's Rav Yochanan and Rish Lakish also. The machok is how do you define achila, whether it's hanaz garon or hanaz meyav. So in fact, it's interesting. So we pass like Rav Yochanan. Usually it's hanaz garon. However, it's interesting minchas chinuch. But let's say b'maynaf kamina. So actually, someone told me, a friend of mine told me that someone came to him. Someone was in the dorm room. So I guess he came back late at night, and he didn't want to turn the light on because his roommate was sleeping. So he went into his drawer, took out some cake. I think it was Entenmann's, whatever. He started eating it. It tasted a little funny. So he went out to the hallway and he saw it was infested with ants or bugs. It wasn't this little bug in the lettuce. It was like, so he came down to the bay. He was all white, saying he wanted to know if he was mechuyev to throw up, try to force himself to. So he said, well, it's a machlokas Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish, whether, because according to Rabbi Yochanan it's all over. It doesn't make a difference. The Aveir is done. According to Reish Lakish, you would have to. Luckily, we passing like Rabbi Yochanan. You don't have to worry anymore. And then, but there's interesting Minchas Chinuch. He claims that on Yom Kippur it's different. The Yom Kippur, because it's different shiurim, and the issue is Inoi. He claims that, and everyone agrees when it comes to Yom Kippur, it's Hanas Me'av. Our Sameach disagrees. So in Kol Torah it's clear it's Hanas Garon. It's a Machlokas Achronim Minchas Chinuch or Sameach. Whether Yom Kippur, what's the definition of violating the Achila is in terms of that. Right, so that's another issue of in Sheminas, and then that gets into also. I think what Shlomo Zalman writes in terms of he thinks water's not so pasha you have. I think it's Rav Shlomo Zalman. I've seen some posts can bring down if you have to take water, then he said you have to make a bitter water. You have to put something in it. I forgot what maybe mouth. I don't know whatever he said, but you can't get, because Chatzi Shirasim in Torah, they don't like the fact of, if you take your svara, so then that every time you have to drink water, so it wouldn't even be a child. But assuming not that way, so then if you had to have water and you had to have the medicine, so then they say you have to put something like bitter tasting, so therefore that's what some posts can bring down. For those people who have to drink something, while they shouldn't be taking orange juice or cranberry juice with their medication, they should be taking some type of bitter type water where it solves the purpose of taking the medicine, but they're not getting hana from the drink. But
do we on Yom Kippur we do say eating is usher even shelo derech achila?
Right, that's the whole Sha'ar Gazari, it's part of the same Shaila. Since normally by Achila it's defined, so we assume either you eat something shelo kederech, either whether the food itself is something you don't normally eat, or you swallow it instead of chewing it, so then call it or cool. Let's say it's probably only an Issa D'Rabbanan, but by Yom Kippur, the Sha'ar Gazari and the Mitzvah Minchas Chinuch, you saw it also that perhaps here it wouldn't make a difference since it doesn't use a lashon achila, so achila is not the issue. It's hanas me'av, and it would be more of a problem on Yom Kippur. Yeah.
So could you? I mean, because the shaila comes up, the person has a bad headache in the afternoon on Yom Kippur. Could he take? Can he swallow Advils, right, without water?
Right. So if you classify it basically as a nafal or mishkav, it could be a cholish ein bosak.
Right. He would be a cholish ein bosak.
Right.
But a nafal mishkav is his mic.
Exactly. Yeah. And then and medicine we assume. I mean that's the issue. That people will assume that medicine pashas isn't an achila. That's part of this discussion. If you assume that medicine isn't, and it's going to be a tablet, there's nothing. So then there's room to be mako on that.
Even if we said now that we don't look at derech achila, but this is like even less.
Right. I mean, it could be this isn't achila. That have to get it. But you don't say akshave on medicine. That's the whole discussion.
Right, but I thought that was the concern on Yom Kippur, that we go like by Pesach we would say that and Achshavei, and I think that's why Rosh Shlomo Zalman says to make the water bitter, because then you'd have no problems with Achshavei.
Right.
Right. But it might. I mean,
I hear what you're saying. I've seen people.
You might have a problem, because.
It's less of some aspect of Sovea. There's an aspect of.
But
the Advil is no.
But that's where it's the shag. That's the whole. That's definitely part of the issue. Whether how you define the medication, and can you say akshave by something you're taking that's obvious where you right. So
by Pesach, I know that's
exactly. It wouldn't surprise me that some poskim would say not to do it on Yom Kippur.
Right.
Based on this svara,
right.
Yeah.
But for someone, but I think we say that. Right.
I think there's room to be, because you're not really you're swallowing, you're not eating it.
But to turn it into an actual oichel, I mean, Asheveh says that obviously you think it's important enough to eat it for you're eating it, but the fact is, over here, you're not. It's not an oichel. It's nothing to do with Selevan. It's you're taking a pill. It's not really tied to the inyanim of you know. It's even in the idea of Selevan on Yom Kippur. It's like Yom Som Panisim. It's like there's no din achilu, but there's still an inyan of being so. There's an inyan of trying not to be Selevan. So it's still tied to oichel. So I think you know a pill.
But by pill you have no hanos kronon, no hanos meyo.
Right.
What do you have?
Right.
You have
Nothing.
You have an achila that's not kederech achila.
By definition, that's not achila because it doesn't meet any of the criteria of achila.
I'm suggesting, and that's not me. That's saying, but there are people that say otherwise.
But that's what I'm saying.
No, I think I don't think that. I think that's a chumrah, but there are definitely those who I've seen. You know.
No. By the way, I mean, I think the Rabbi. I don't want to quote him. Is that you can use an ad? If you could swallow an Advil without anything, you'd be okay for the reasons that you said.
You saying Rabbi Tab? You say?
I don't want to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just kidding. It wasn't him. Yeah.
I think it's not hanos meyo.
No, I don't know. I think I think that Meik Pashas it should be mutter. I mean, I see this room more of a chum by here, but I think it's
That's why
more.
the water is a good idea if you put something bitter in it, so that way you solve the problem of potentially
Right.
the water might be up, because you're not taking the water anymore, right? Because there you really have derech achila.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
There you have
sure.
water.
Right.
So that's why.
It is an oichel.
So then, by
Right.
making it bitter, now you're getting into achsheveh. You remove the achsheveh.
Because you're giving it. Yeah. You may like the bitter one. I mean, like.
Okay, to take us way back, according to the Rambam, in the other inuyim, it's a deraisa. Is it a chiv kares?
No.
So where does that come from?
No, that's based on the pasuk about the pasuk in Parashas Emor. They called the nefesh or mauna. It's based on psukim. The Gemara derives from psukim. It's limited. That it's limited to achil and shtia, the chi of kares.
But where do the other? What pasuk do the other shum come from?
So the question it says Enoi. That's the Gemara.
That pasuk in Ebenezer must
The Gemara talks about there's 5 times Enoi in the Torah, and they learn out. So the other ones would just say it's rasmachta. But it's only by no. That if you hold according to the Rambam, they're all deraisa.
They're all deraisa. So where's the pasuk for the other ones? Except
it's saying because it says Enoi. The Gemara look at it says Enoi 5 times regarding Yom Kippur, so they learn out the 5 Inuyim.
The pasuk specifically says that Enoi is v'nichras nefesh ahi.
That's one pasuk which by the chi of kares. So that's we assume is achil and shtia, and then there are 4 other places.
The 4 other places aren't for Yom Kippur, aren't they?
That's what the Gemara.
There's 5 times it says the word Enoi for Yom Kippur. Yeah. Well, there's 2 there in Emor, right?
If the Gemara says,
I think you count them.
Even up to 20, I agree with him. Less than 20, more than 20, I agree. Less than 20, even they can.
I guess if we have something to do on Yom Kippur, we could count. We could go.
Anyway, so he says there's 5 times it says Enoi, and that one for each one.
Right, that's the Gemara,
You don't find 5.
But wait a second, 2 of them. But wait a second, the two in Emor they both say kares, right?
Yeah, so that. But there may be other.
So how do you get? So now you're stuck. So now you only have 3.
Yes, I'm just saying that, but that's how I have to just look up. The Gemara goes through how they, but I'm coming back to Joel's point here.
Or maybe other ones that uses that term Enoi.
Right. So we asked according to the Rambam that Shari Surma Daraisa. So the Torah term suggests maybe that's only Rechitzis Kol Gufo is Asur Min HaTorah, but Mixes Haguf that's not. So the question is Chati Shir Asur Min HaTorah. So what's the difference if how does that help according to the Rambam? The Rambam passes Chati Shir Asur. How does Mixes Haguf help? So that's what some Achronim explain based on the Meiri in Shabbos, in the beginning of Shabbos. The Gemara, the Rishonim talk about the Isser of walking Dalet Amos, Rishus Harabim. So what happens if you walk 2 Amos in Rishus Harabim? So it's mutter. Chati Shir Asur Min HaTorah. Why should 2 Amos be mutter? So that's what the Meiri explains. That's called Chati Malacha. There's a big difference between Chati Shir. Again, you have to know which one is which, depending how it's defined. But the Meiri tells us that the definition is Dalit Amos. So therefore, carrying Dalit Amos, and maybe you carry less than the amount, so maybe you get into a Chatzi Shir issue. But if you don't carry Dalit Amos, it's Chatzi Malacha, and that's Heter Gomer. So that's what some suggest here, that by definition, the definition of Rechitza is Kol HaGuf, and therefore if you only do mixes, it's not a matter of Chatzi Shir, it's not defined as Rechitza. Or others suggest, according to the Rambam, that maybe only Rechitza Shel Tainug, that's Asur Min HaTorah. But that's the Geder, because all the cases in the Gemara are in Rechitza Shel Tainug. You don't have to live until you're dirty, you have swords on your head, and except for the mouth. All those are cases where, if you're not doing a for Tainug. So if you're doing a for Tainug, that's the issue, and that's how they, like we have a Chol Hamoed. There's a machlokes whether Malach and Chol Hamoed is Daraisa D'Rabbanan. So according to the sheet, it's all Daraisa. Where do you find it? So therefore, that's what the Gemara tells us. Masra l'Chacham. At certain halachas, the Torah let the Chacham decide. Is an Issa Daraisa do Malach and Chol Hamoed? What is Malacha? On Shabbos and Yom Tov, they tell us, they're not so clear. The Chacham will define it. So similarly here, by Shari Nuyim, so the Chacham will define what is. So the Torah says Rechitza Shel Tainug is Asur. If it's not Rechitza Shel Tainug, it's not Bechlal. So that's how people learn different pshatim according to those shitas who hold as Daraisa. So therefore you have so they come up with different reasons why we have the different exceptions. However, one other famous kasha is the Ran over there in 8th parak. He asked, so what does the Gemara say? The Gemara says, Tinokos mutarim bekulan, that if a child, you're allowed to feed, you're allowed to wash, everything except the ilas hasandal, the Gemara says, because the Gemara says if the person's not, if the kid's wearing sneakers for a day, it's not going to affect his long-term growth story. He'll be fine. But apparently, not eating, not washing, these type of things are more critical, and therefore for a teenage, they're all that you're allowed to do on Yom Kippur for the katan, but not everything except nilas hasandal. So it comes along the Ran and says, what are you talking about? How could I wash a katan? We have a famous Gemara in Yavamas, I believe Kuf Yudalid, or in that area. Lo sa'achilam, the Gemara, the Torah says that lahazir gedolim al katana, that we have it by sheretz, we have it by tuma, that in addition for me, let's say I'm a Kohen, this is the right for me to walk into a cemetery, but it is the right on me to instruct my son, the Kohen, to walk in. Lahazir gedolim al katanim, and same thing by the other places, the prohibition lo sachim, you can't instruct your katan to do an Aveira. So the question is, how could you, and certainly how could you go and wash your katan on Shabbos, on Yom Kippur, the Shabbos also opens here, but on Yom Kippur, that also plays as a separate share about that, the Cholish Eish was the you have to make Kiddush this year, it's a separate share. But in terms of how goes Achilam, how could he do it? How could Lahazir Gedolim al Katan, what's the heter of being able to wash your child? So based on this kasha, the Ran concludes, Elavaden, you're right. Shari Nuyam are only D'Rabbanan. The fact that you're allowed to do this, so how does that help Shari Nuyam D'Rabbanan? So that gets into a machlokas Rishonim and the Sugi in Yavamos on Lo Sachim. Is it limited to only Isuri D'Araisa? Or it also applies to D'Rabbanan? So the Ran seems to be working with the Shitas and the Rishonim that say Lo Sachim only applies on something which is Asim in HaTorah. But something which is Asim B'Drabanan, so then the Lo Sachim doesn't apply, the Hazik doesn't apply. So what is this? What's the chiluk between why should the right and draw to make a difference? It's a famous Nitzivas and others, all the Meshech Chachma all make the distinction between a deraisa and a drabanan, that a deraisa, something which is like, let's say by Bacholas Asuras. So if you go to the butcher shop and he gives you treif, so you can get your money back, and then some. You go back, it's a mekach toast. But if he gave you treif to rabbanan, if you didn't eat it yet, you could switch it. But if you already ate it, you go back, no refund. Because in the Tzivah it says when it comes to a deraisa, shogeg, sarah kapara, you need tshuva. But the Chiddush in the Tzivah is, and the Meshech Chochmah and other Achronim, on an Issa D'Rabbanan b'shogeg, there's no kapara, no tshuva. Why? Because there's nothing inherent with eating the treif D'Rabbanan meat. It's really mutter. It's based on Lo Sasser. It's Meridas Chazal. The prohibition is, I'm rebelling against the Chachamim. But if I ate it b'shogeg, there was no rebellion, and therefore, Ein Tzara Kapara. So the Ran seems to be working with this, the Mahalach of these Rishonim, that Lo Tzachirim only applies to an Issa Daraisa, an Issa Chefsa, but it doesn't apply to a D'Rabbanan.
Don't most Rishonim learn that Lo Sachilim is only when you're talking about Tarfas?
No, not just Tafra. That would be the second answer. Not just Tafra, but it's limited to. So comes along. So Bishlam with the Ran who says Shari Yom D'Rabbanan. But what does the Ran do about Achila? Achila, everyone agrees the rights is he's stuck there. So therefore, and what about to the other sheet is the Rambam who holds Rechit is the rights. So what's the answer? So that the Marcheshet, Rabbi Yosef Engel, they want to make a further distinction that they want to mechadish that even within. So according to the Nesiva, his chiddush was all the rices are chefsa, they're inherently wrong, and the Rabbanans are only on the Gavra. Comes along Rabbi Yosef Engel and the Marcheshes and say no, even within Isuri Doraisa you make a distinction. So like the Gemara talks about Macholas Asuros or Tumas Kohanim, things that have a chalos. Like if you walk into a cemetery, you tell me whether you liked it or not. In other words, something inherent like treif. So he wants to say we only say Lo Sachilam on Isuri Chefsa, not Isuri Gavra. So Isuri Chefsa like Macholas Asuros. And you could argue Tumas Kohanim. But on the other things, he wants to claim Yom Kippur, Shabbos, they're all Yisuri Zman. They're only limited for a time. They're only Yisuri Gavra. And a Katan, there is no Chefs, there is nothing on a Gavra of a Katan, he can do anything. It's only out Tzina, he's doing it. To the Macheshes want to suggest that we only say Lo Sachilam on Yisuri Chefsa. And therefore, it's no Kasha. Washing all the Yisurim for a Katan on Yom Kippur are only Yisuri Gavra, and that's why even if you assume Daraisa, there's still no problem of Lo Sachilam. In fact, there's a famous Rav Chaim, which also fits in well, because Rav Chaim, the Pasuk says, Atol Vincha on Shabbos, not only can you do Malach on Shabbos, but also you can instruct your child. So the question they ask is, what do I need the special Pasuk by Shabbos? I have the general plow, Lo Sachilam. So Rav Chaim has his own chiddush that it's coming to tell me that if someone who gets the katan to do malacha, he himself is a mummer Shabbos. He has not just an Isser Klali, you're considered a machal. That's Rav Chaim's chiddush. That if you instruct your child to do it, that you're a machal Shabbos, and there may be a mummer. He wants to say that's what you need the pasuk for. But with the Marcheshes, we have the answer. It's no kasha. The question, what do we need a pasuk by Shabbos? Because Lo Sachim only applies to Yisuri Chefsa, and Shabbos is an Yisuri Gavra, so therefore you need a separate pasuk to teach me Shabbos. But that's how they discuss the kasha of the Ran. How could you wash a katan? So the Ran was forced to say, okay, you're right, good kasha. I'd say Shari Nuyim Rabbanan. But what about Achila? What about the Rama who holds Shari Nuyim? So then you come on to either that it only applies to Deraisas but not to Rabbanan, so first, or if you hold the Deraisa, so then you come on to the Marcheshes that Lo Sachim only applies to Isuri Chefsa like Machoas Asuras or Tumas Kohanim, but Isuri Yom Kippur, and that's why it's the famous Yerushalmi that we discussed many times about Mitzvah Bavera, the same Gavra, that if someone does Kriya on Shabbos, so we don't say Mitzvah, you might be Machal Shabbos, but you get your Mitzvah of Kriya. Yet, if you're Matzah Gezula, if you eat Matzah Gezula, you don't get the Mitzvah. What's the famous Yerushalmi, that basically what he's saying is, that basically that when it comes to the matzah, it's the chefsa that's us, it's the matzah gezula, so therefore we say mitzvah ba'avera. we only say it on the chefsa. But on the Shabbos, there's nothing. The beggar didn't do anything wrong. It was this on the gavra, so we only say mitzvah ba'avera on the chefsa. So they use that Yerushalmi and make distinction. But that's what the Nesivas Chiddush is. You make a distinction between Deraisa and Drabanans. The Marcheshet and Rabbi Yosef Engel took it a step further. No, not all. Within the Deraisas, you have Yisuri Chefsa and you have Yisuri Gavra. And the Chiddush of the Marcheshet, we don't say Lo Sachilum on Yisuri. We only say on Yisuri Chefsa, not on Yisuri Gavra. So that's to summarize. So we started off talking about the 5 Inuyim, that no matter what, Achil and Shti are singled out. The Gemara singles them out. We learn our courage by them, and not by, even if you hold the other 4 the Raisa, there's no courage. So we discussed, went into the whole issue of Chati Shir Asim and Torah, and then the whole issue of someone who eats on Yom Kippur, Achol Sheyesh Bo Sakana, Achol She'ein Bo Sakana, or someone in between who might not yet be a cholesh, so about machil and kal tchila, etc. And then and we pointed out that the Rambam holds it's deraisa. So how does he explain all the? So those Rishonim will say you have all the exceptions because it's Durabanan. Makam Durabanan lo gazru. But according, if you hold it's deraisa, why do you have the exceptions? So they point out that either you go on to rechitas kol aguf, chatzi shir asim and that's chatzi malacha, that's not chatzi shir. Or you have others who say no, it's how you define it. Like Cholamai, it's dafka rechitza shel tainig, that's the definition. But if it's not rechitza shel tainig, it's not usher. And then we had the kasha of the Ran of lo sachilam. So like the Nitzivas, like those Rishonim will say it only applies to the rights and not Drabanan. But the chiyuv between the rights and Drabanan. But it doesn't help. What about if you hold achil or if you hold the chitzah deraisa? You have to come on to the marcheshes about even among the deraisa you find. In fact, there's one more rush I'll conclude with on this. That there's a famous rush about, let's say, a cholesh yesh bo sakana on Shabbos. What the general is, let's say, a cholesh yesh bo sakana, and he has to eat. Should he eat something which is an isser lav? Or something, or eating chayla, something curry. So obviously we say, machir so kal tchila, you eat the thing which is only chayav machir. So the Rush quotes from the Rishonim, what about on Shabbos? You have a choice, you can eat nevela right now, or you could do shchita and go and have kosher. So pashtas you would say, kal tchila, you eat nevela, but if you don't want to machal Shabbos, with...
It's moisiv.
Right. But people so we quote some Rishonim that say no, it's better you should go ahead and machal Shabbos because why? That's only an Itzah Gavra, but in the Vela then it's a Chefsa, and that's worse. So we even find even among those Rishonim that make a distinction between a Chefsa of trade versus Shabbos. Pashas obviously Shabbos is more machmir. That's I think the Rush quotes from the Marim of Rurenberg over there in terms.
Amount of times. Right,
because that's what they bring out. Because Shabbos is right. I guess the modern equivalent would be how many driving on Shabbos, how many prohibitions do you violate? Because we don't drive to the store to get the kosher or drive to your home. I guess in theory, if Fortinos and those stores aren't allowed, the kosher section is not allowed to be open. So therefore, in theory, they can't. It'll be hard to get kosher food on Shabbos, so you have to go to the manager, or you just go home and get some kosher food. Have a Gemara Chasim Tova, meaningful fast.
Thank you.